One Sunday in high school, I woke up and I saw this special edition New York Times on the doorstep, and something about it caught my eye. So I decided to start reading through, and it turned out it was this collection of pictures from the summer of 1978 that were lost. And the New York City Parks Department had commissioned photographers to go out in New York and just take pictures of people enjoying the summer in parks in New York. And I think that really struck when you saw these pictures, that people were outside enjoying life in the moment. And something about the colors used in the photography, the imagery, just looked like people were really in the moment, present, enjoying life, enjoying the city around them. And around this time in my life, I was thinking about the principles of the tech that I wanted to build. And as I was looking through these pictures and I saw everyone really engaged and present, it had me thinking, can we be in a world where people are that present and we're still using technology? Or does it have to be a world where we're looking face down at our phones and we're dependent on these devices that are placed around different places? I had also at that time read this book called The Humane Interface by Jeff Raskin, which I highly recommend. And it just had me further thinking about the principles behind the tech that we were building, and more so the tech that we were designing. And even, as I look at old science fiction, like I used to watch the Jetsons, or just any time I would watch a science fiction movie and you'd see this depiction of the future, you would think about this like augmented overlay, this tech overlay on the world. And I was always thinking, oh, that's got to be, so far down the line. Yes, this is an important thing to think about, but there are other things we can think about right now. And I think over the past couple months with certain wearables, especially a couple that I'm about to talk about, these AI wearables, that's becoming a lot more of a reality. And so some of those things that I would think back to when I saw this summer of 1978 are starting to come back in my mind. And I want to talk about three devices in particular, three AI wearables. I want to talk about Tab by Avi Schiffmann. I want to talk about the Humane AI pin and this Rewind AI pendant. Just give a little bit of an overview, some thoughts, and then I want to talk about what I think about AI wearables in general and just a couple ideas. So starting off with Tab by Avi, because I just think it's a very interesting device, and Avi has been building a lot of cool stuff, a lot of very impactful projects on Twitter. So when I watched this whole 8-minute demo for Tab, I was very impressed with how much work he put into it.
I think we've seen a rise of some very interesting AI tools, but they don't have any personal context on you. They don't know anything about you. How can you truly give your personal context to such a tool? I've come up with this wearable that you can see hanging around my neck right now, where throughout my days, it kind of ingests the context of my daily life through listening in on all of my conversations.
Basically, it's a little tile circular size device that you're wearing as a necklace. It's listening to everything that you're saying and everything around you, and then you're interfacing with a large language model that is basically tailored to that data that has been recorded, and you can have a conversation with it via this mobile iPhone app.
I think the greatest way to show you one would just be to ask Tab. So Tab, what did I discuss during dinner today? Let's see what it comes up with. And I think one thing that I found that is amazing with talking to AI like this is you're kind of computing the way you think. Usually when you're trying to talk to someone or you're just thinking, you don't prompt engineer your thoughts. You don't explain and write this context or these random paragraphs of specific features. You just want to talk to your AI. And that's what I've noticed with using dinner like this. So for example, it even picked up Flare, if you see that. It talks about all kinds of ideas.
So I think some of the pros there are that he was able to do this more or less on his own or with a small team, and costing him, 100K, not however many millions the Humane product would cost or any other product. I think there are a lot of good things he's thinking about in terms of the design and how you wearing a necklace feels a little bit more natural than having clothing that is designed for a certain hardware device to fit into it. And I think he's being very intentional in the demos about what the target audience is, not just for the product, but for where it could be going in the future. So I think those are all good things. I think he sensed that other people who are building these AI wearables were going to be doing demos, and he has sped things up. And so I think from the builder perspective and everything, Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about Tab. It was a very cool demo. I'm very impressed by it. I think that Avi is doing all the things the right way in terms of how you go about this as a builder and just showing that you can build things and execute. I think that this AI pendant device by Rewind.
The app we built is called Rewind. It's a personalized AI powered by everything you've seen, said, or heard. But there is so much more to life than what we experience on our devices. That's why the next step toward our vision of giving humans superpowers is the Rewind Pendant. Rewind Pendant is a wearable that captures what you say, what you hear in the real world, and then transcribes, encrypts, and stores it entirely locally on your phone. Put down a deposit for your Rewind Pendant for only $59.
I'm not really sure where it came from. When I first saw it, I actually thought, oh, this must be a response to Tab by Avi, just because Rewind hadn't mentioned a single thing about hardware. But who knows? I'm not trying to say that they saw this demo and then they were like, we need to copy it or we need to put something out the next day. But in my mind, it definitely did feel a little bit like all this attention was brought to this one product. And then the one that is being announced next, this AI pendant, is like basically the same thing, but by a company that is venture backed and has a product that is a little bit more established. And so that's a little bit of a thought. Who knows where that goes? There's definitely not much differentiating the products. The AI pendant by Rewind isn't as circular. I don't really know what you would call it. It kind of just looks like a little stick. But definitely still going for the necklace type of vibe, supposedly privacy first, because with Rewind, all the data for the recordings and then also for this AI product are stored locally on your device. And then the third product, before I give a little more of an overview, is Humane, which has been around for quite a while. I think that the company was incorporated in 2017 or 2018, started by Imran and Bethany, husband and wife couple who used to work at Apple for a long time on many different products. If you go to Imran's website, it is the biggest flex. It's just a huge page of all the patents that he has from his time at Apple. And early on, I remember there being this Week in Startups pod in 2019, 2020, going over some of the patents that were first filed.
Attention everybody, this is an emergency podcast. 2 Apple engineers with thousands of patents have left Apple to create an iPhone killer, and we know what it is. On September 25th, Fast Company published an article. 2 ex-Apple rock stars have raised $30 million to build the next iPhone, and we know what it is. Or at least we think we do. Humane LLC filed a patent on May 10th, 2018, that seemed to be an early version of the product. And the patent title is Wearable Multimedia Device and Cloud Computing Platform with Application Ecosystem. Excerpts from the patent. There are some interesting clues. The device is lightweight, small form factor, battery powered, and can attach to a user's clothing or an object using a tension clasp, interlocking pin back, magnet, or any other attachment mechanism.
That there were certain networking devices, or there was a device with like a LiDAR sensor on it, so you could detect different objects in an environment that are around you. And I think some of that lines up with where things could be heading, based on what we've seen from the Humane device. But also some things I've heard are that at first the focus was not as much on AI, but that because of everything going on recently, it's not just become a focus in terms of the product, but it's now literally called the Humane AI pin. And so they've gone about it in a very different way, in that they've raised up to a Series B, I want to say, amount of funding, and still haven't publicly really showcased the product other than a TED Talk, which I can't really say how public that is because it's pretty manufactured how that kind of talk is given. But none of that is to shade them as well. It's definitely just another approach of going about it. From what I've seen in the product, it's basically a screenless device that would project UI onto your hand when needed. And also a lot of it would happen through voice, whether you want to ask a question, have something translated, etc. But that product hasn't been released yet. They showed it off at the Coperni fashion show, which Coperni is a fashion brand that is very tech forward. They've done stuff with Boston Dynamics, for example. They just did a show at Paris Fashion Week, and Naomi Campbell was wearing the AI pin on her dress. All the models were wearing the pin. I think she was the first person outside of the company to wear it. So hopefully soon they will start to unveil more about the Humane product as well. But a lot of people on Twitter have been talking about, they're trying to recreate the iPhone lore, how iPhone was kind of like built in this like private, secretive way for a while with all this hype around it. And so who knows? I'm not trying to throw too much shade. I think that's just a lot of the reaction that's happened. And I think personally, not to, shade any of the companies, but the approach of someone like Avi, who is going to be a little bit more scrappy and focus more on getting something out there that people can see, is something that I respect a lot. I'm not saying that there isn't benefit to both, but I think with the humane approach, sometimes it becomes a little bit of a stalling game. And if there was a little bit of sauce, then maybe that's something that they would want to reveal. But where all of this has me thinking is, do we want to be wearing AI wearables? Is that the future of a device? Are you going to be having this AI wearable plus something like the Apple Vision Pro, and then you have your screens in front of you, and you have an assistant you're talking to, and you have unlimited context, recording for everything you're doing? I'm not exactly sure. Do I have the answer for what we wear instead? I don't know. But the one thing I would say is that there are certain things that we could be doing before jumping to new mediums that still make the data we have accessible to us right now of more use. For example, you think about all the different web apps that you're using. There isn't really one way to connect those apps so that you could find information from them, ask questions. And if something like that existed in the browser, on our desktops, for example, I think that would make finding information a lot easier, hopefully reduce the complexity of doing certain things on a device, and then give us more time to return to the real world. So again, not saying I have an answer. I just think that there are certain smaller solutions that we could think about to, either remedy problems with current devices or with new mediums we're working on. And I also think this is just an important time to step back and think about, what do we want this world to look like with AI? What do we want the world specifically of wearables to look like? Because it's all progressing in a very, very fast rate. And if we don't take the time to sit back and have these conversations, then who knows where we could be in 5-10 years.